Now that you've talked about some of the things you loved and the holes that the church filled for you, talk about some of the more difficult aspects of being a member, the parts that were painful or challenging.
Okay. One of the particularly challenging parts of being affiliated, like strongly affiliated and connected, was just this disconnect from myself. I feel like oftentimes when you're in a religious structure and you're taught to obey, it's the input is always external, right? You're listening to leaders, you're listening to you're listening to everyone else except you. And so I sort of feel like I went through a large part of my life not being able to recognize my own voice, my own needs, even who I was. So we talk about identity, and I use that loosely because I feel like my identity was stunted. I never sort of dreamed freely, like had a dream free from this structure or imposed formula. And so that disconnection to self, I think it's costly. It tends to catch up with you sooner or later. And it definitely did for me. The second thing that was difficult for me was this perfectionism hustle that I think comes out of organized religion, again, because the idea of religion kind of comes from this depravity, right? That we aren't okay on our own, we need a savior, we need a prophet. You can't think through things on your own. You couldn't possibly do this on your own. And so from that, there's this unworthiness. And so, not to mention this cultural pressure to keep all these tops going in order for you to get blessings or to be considered worthy. And so I think I came with a lot of that on my own. And so I feel like that sort of cultural emphasis as well and religious emphasis was a bit of a perfect storm for me. And I think reinforced aspects of myself that weren't healthy.
Like what?
Like the constant striving, like that I had to work for love, that I had to work for value, that I wasn't worthy on my own or capable on my own, that I couldn't be trusted. Those things were particularly difficult.
How'd that play out for you internally and in your life? How did that show up in unhealthy ways?
Well, I definitely growing up, I struggled with an eating disorder, so that sort of out of control. I now, in fairness, there are a lot of things that went into that eating disorder, but for me, it centered on unworthiness. For me, that's where it began. It wasn't about eating or trying to be skinny. And so control was a way for me to sort of control around food is a way to deny your worthiness. You're not even willing to take in life-sustaining things. So it was this manifestation of how I felt about myself. So there was that. But also I feel like, I honestly feel like there are certain points in my life where I abandoned myself. Can you
think of a time or a couple times?
I think one particular time was when we were engaged and about to be married, and I loved school. I've always loved learning, and I had a semester to go. And when we got married, I remember you feeling really a lot of pressure to move into the role of sort of providing. We have to earn a living. It just got really real really quickly. And so I left BYU having not earned a degree. And for someone who wanted to get a master's and had sort of dreams that way, everyone that knew me was like, what?
What did you want to do? You get a master's and do what?
In English Lit. I mean, my tentative dream was to teach adjunct and write. I wanted to be a writer.
What kept you from doing that?
Yeah, I think it was my buy-in. This is where I betrayed myself. I think it was my buy-in to a structure. I realized, hey, this guy is pretty great, which you were. He's pretty awesome. I haven't met someone quite like him before. And at that time, you feeling really strongly that we needed to go. And so it left me in a place.
Go where? What was I wanting to do?
We had gotten a job in DC at SRA Corporation. And so
what was I driving towards?
Towards stability and being a good provider. And sort of building, we were living the formula. What was next? What was next was a family, trying to provide for a family, which would mean babies. Babies are us. Babies are us. But so I ended up leaving, and that was, I feel like internally I betrayed myself there, and I felt it. And I graduated from college when Maya was born.
And how did that, looking back, how was that not such a good thing for you to follow that plan? You've said it, but just summarize it.
Well, I think a good plan takes into account the passions and the, of both people. And so I feel like there was a great way that if I could have heard my own voice, if I could have been aware of it and spoken it, and all those things didn't exist at that time, I could have said to you, hey, love, I love the idea of you getting a job, and you have to know in marrying me, I'm finishing school right here, right now. I got a semester to go, and then from there, let's look at what we want to do together beyond that, I just think I could have tried that. And I could have honored myself and still been part of a couple and still lived the formula.
You don't regret having kids, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
You just
absolutely not.
You just would have done it differently. So
this is a tricky thing, doing it differently, because I'm very at peace with my life now. I'm very at peace with my children and how it all worked. And you go back and you start changing things, and it's like about time. You can't change from the beginning without changing the end. And I really have an appreciation for my journey now. So, but if you're going to ask what I'm telling my daughters and my son, what I'm telling them is, this is your time. No need to rush it. Like, discover who you are, take classes, get that first job, maybe have your own place, an apartment, and have relationships amidst that you want. But this time is your time. It may not come again, in this way, in this unbridled, free way. So really, really love it and feel good about using it and living it to its fullest.
Anything else that was hard about your participation in the church?
I had sensitivities around time and family. I think you probably felt that. Growing up, my mom was uber involved, and we'd be having Christmas, and then, hey ho, the missionaries are coming too, and we were like, the missionaries, seriously, why are they coming to? It was like everything was just up for. Anyone was welcome. We had people live with us who, were having a hard time. Young women live with us. And it just felt like sometimes for me, there were some boundary issues. And so as a result, I was quite protective of our family time. And so callings, those things were things that I navigated carefully, time, and felt protective of.
Anything else that was hard about being Mormon for you?
The temple.
Okay. Talk about that.
So I just remember being married, beautiful moments being married. But I also remember the temple being a complete shock to me, from the way that I had grown up hearing about it. And I think what ended up happening was when I went and to be married, that I just couldn't believe no one close to me had warned me or said, okay, here's a heads up. And I felt so dissonant, so strange amidst the things that went on there, that it troubled me. It really troubled me because it's supposed to be like, this is heaven on earth. Like, this is the pinnacle of, and I was so deeply uncomfortable with it that I thought, honestly, I remember thinking, like, this is the best God has. This is it. This is what we get. This is the, and you know, maybe even taking it internally to like, why don't I like it? Why does it feel so wrong and so strange to me? And that was always an issue for me, and I rarely went.
And do you feel like you had some residual guilt or shame that you didn't enjoy it?
Well, not now. Then I did tend to feel like when it was talked about and when people would laud it as, you know, this special, it was again a disconnect from the community at large and from, you know, doctrine. And that went to garments too. I was deeply uncomfortable wearing garments.
Why? What's wrong with garments?
Well, I loved the idea. There are things I loved about it. Like, I love symbolism. I'm all about symbolism. It can work for me. But I'm not about, I never felt comfortable with the protective, it's going to protect. I'm just not made that way, I guess. So I never really, I loved the idea of a reminder of commitment, but I'm like, could my ring count? Like, could my heart count? I've got that going on. And so for me, it felt shame. And it really did play into like going to bed, always trying to like wear it. It felt like I was literally trying to cover up parts of myself. And I do feel like it kind of affected me sexually, how I viewed myself sexually, that covering. That's something that I've realized through taking the garments off.
How did it affect you sexually?
Well, I think there was just a psychological shame component to always feeling like, but cover it up, but, you know, whatever you do, be covered, you know? And so I always like would wear running clothes longer. I'd be like, yeah, well, I ran 4 hours ago, so that I could wear normal things. And then I think I'm also just a comfort person, and so wearing things under things under things, I'm just like, really? Like, it just doesn't feel good. How about we not?
But you wore them.
I wore them, but I'd get that kind that like on the ends that you could push up, because I wasn't gonna wear the ultra long shorts, because like, who does that? And trying to find shorts that are long enough that when you sit, like, because they go up, that they don't show. And I hated the idea of like them showing. So I'd get that kind, and you could just push them up high, and then I could wear normal shorts and skirts.
How about just in terms of their comfort?
Well, they're not comfortable. They have seams in very not seamable places. They should take a design team to the garment idea. Anyway.
Going back to the temple, you had made a funny comment about the handshakes and stuff. Do you want to like the ritual itself? Do you want to just talk about your reflections on the ritual?
I kind of skipped over that because I wonder if people would be offended by the fact that I would talk about it that way. You know, emotionally, I did have that though, where there are hats and things that you're moving, and you're in this place that you know, you think it's been built up years and years through young women's. And so you get there, and I just remember, you know, you got to do the right handshake and say the right thing, and it's verbatim, and you got to memorize it, and and I just thought, really, God? This is God's idea? Like, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it that this is the best we've got.
So you just thought the temple wasn't true, or you just thought?
I kind of did.
But did you ever say maybe the problem's you, or did you not go there?
I think in some of my more vulnerable, feeling different moments, I probably did. I just stayed away. I stayed away, and in lessons, I, tried to focus on other things.
Anything else about the difficulties of being a Mormon, the hardest parts for you, or do you think you covered them?
I do view the conditional love paradigm really, really problematic, where it keeps us young. It keeps us, I would say the obedience.
Young can be good. What do you mean? Keeps us young? You mean immature?
Well, I want to talk.
Do you mean stunted?
So what would I say about that? So I just feel like religion offers a God that offers conditional love. It's like, follow my rules and you will be redeemed and you can live with me and you get my grace and you get my, love. And I have an issue with that. And what I've learned is there's this great opportunity in transitioning about where you move to unconditional love.
But don't talk about that. Talk about the hard part about conditional.
So conditional love is controlling. Conditional love, I feel like, isn't growth promoting. It's strictly, this is what you have to do to be loved. Follow this, 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 and this, right? And it keeps the love immature. It keeps it untried, and it tends to, I feel like, internally erode over time.
Why?
Because
like for you personally, thinking the idea of having to earn your love, how did that negatively play out in your life growing up? The structure of having to earn your love, how did that not work for you?
I think I became addicted to achievement. I became addicted to overworking. I became addicted to always proving my worth, which of course then leads you to be more disconnected and dishonoring of yourself. And it's this spiral that leads you to sort of exhaustion. And how do you offer love to another human being when that's the love structure that you have for yourself? That we can do better as human beings. That structure works against how we're made, in my opinion. We're not made to stay stagnant. We change, we grow, we evolve as humans through experience, right? So we're not always going to be the same. We're not always going to be able to be mapped out in these particular things where you and I are on the same page and feel the same things and want to do, at the exact same time. It's built to fail, or at the very least to be unhealthy, in my opinion.
When you talk about your eating disorder and your perfectionism, on the one hand, you said that the conditional love paradigm led you to be a high achiever. And some would say that's good. You're winning running championships, you're doing well in school, you're getting married, you're living a healthy, clean life. So for you, was there any dark side personally to the conditional love paradigm?
Yes, it's that I felt unworthy of love.
How did that play out in your life?
I think it played out in the love I gave, in my connection with myself and how I connected with others. I think it made me perpetually exhausted. It made me, intention-wise, it makes all the difference. I love achievement when it's my choice, when I feel passionate and driven on my own. But if I'm doing that because I'm trying to be loved, because I feel like this is then it's an addiction like any other addiction, where you're sacrificed. You are sacrificed at large for this end, right? And that's when we get into literal addictions, depression, anxiety, things that rob us of joy and fulfillment, in the present moment where everything happens.
Did it affect negatively your relationship with your spouse or children, do you think?
I think it affected the way I connected with them in an adverse way. Because anytime you're trying to control outcome and control people, it's not love, and they feel that. And that's something I think people prize more than anything, is they want to be trusted. They want to be viewed as whole. They want to be viewed as lovable. And when you're not able to, you're giving an energy that is distrustful, fear-based, control-based, what you get is you get disconnection, and you get a whole lot of resistance.